I accept my share of the responsibility in the result of the elections.
If you look at race by race, it was close. The cumulative effect, however, was not too close. It was a thumping.
I'm not recommending for every future president that they take a shellacking like I did last night.
Hello and welcome to Planet America. I'm John Barron.
And I'm Chaz Licciardello.
This week, Trump is officially running and a special counsel is officially investigating.
We're going to be talking about all of that, plus the end of the Pelosi era. We're talking with her former House Deputy, Steve Israel. But first...
And first to the weekend's big news from US Attorney General Merrick Garland.
I'm here today to announce the appointment of a special counsel in connection with two ongoing criminal investigations that have received significant public attention.
The first criminal investigation the special counsel is taking up, whether any person or entity unlawfully interfered with the transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election, or the certification of the Electoral College vote on January 6th, 2021.
The second is the ongoing investigation involving classified documents and other presidential records, as well as the possible obstruction of that investigation.
General Garland didn't actually say Donald Trump's name, but there was no doubt who the prime target of this investigation is.
Based on recent developments, including the former president's announcement that he is a candidate for president in the next election, and the sitting president's stated intention to be a candidate as well, I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel.
A special counsel, also sometimes called a special prosecutor or an independent counsel, is appointed, in this case by the Attorney General, in cases which would present a conflict of interest for the department or other extraordinary circumstances. And there is no doubt these are extraordinary circumstances, just as they were when Acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed Special Counsel Robert Mueller to investigate Russian election interference in 2017 following the sacking of FBI Chief James Comey by Donald Trump. But unlike Mueller, Special Counsel Jack Smith is not expected to take 2 years to reach a conclusion. And who is Special Counsel Jack Smith?
He's a career prosecutor who served with the International Criminal Court and oversaw war crimes investigations. Here at home, he started as a federal prosecutor in 1999.
Then, during the Obama administration, Smith led the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, where he prosecuted cases involving election crime. And this was former President Trump's reaction at a black tie event at his resort in Mar-a-Lago in Florida.
The corrupt and highly political Justice Department just appointed a super radical left special counsel.
Super radical. Just wait till someone tells Trump that two of Smith's most famous corruption cases involved a Republican governor and a Republican congressman who Trump himself later pardoned. That will mellow Trump right out. Thankfully, though, if Garland was worried about the decision to prosecute Trump being politicized, well, the special counsel appointment has solved that completely. You've got Republican firebrands calling for him to be impeached. You've got Democrat firebrands calling for him to be fired, saying he's the worst Attorney General of the modern era. There's some real unity there. It warms the heart. Now, some lefties are worried that this appointment will only serve to slow Trump's prosecution, but the special counsel himself has a different view, declaring that the pace of the investigation will not pause or flag under his watch. But what does that mean? We don't really know. In fact, we don't know much at all at the moment, except what Smith's instructions were from Garland. But those are important, especially this. When Mueller was appointed special counsel, he was told, if the special counsel believes it's necessary and appropriate, the special counsel's authorized to prosecute federal crimes arising from the investigation of these matters. Fine. Now, Smith was told something almost identical. The special counsel's authorized to prosecute federal crimes, etc., etc. Okay, but do you see the difference? Garland removed the bit at the front that said if the special counsel believes it is necessary and appropriate, then they prosecute. So Mueller had to ask himself, is it necessary to prosecute? But Garland's almost certainly deliberately set the bar for Smith to prosecute to be incredibly low. No questions asked. That's a problem for Trump. What's a problem for Biden, though, is that there will now be a huge amount of pressure on Garland to appoint a special counsel for the Hunter Biden investigation. Now, because surely Garland has a conflict of interest there as well. Republicans are already onto this one. They're suggesting that the special counsel moves the focus away from the real threat to the rule of law, which is Biden's role in Hunter's allegedly corrupt enterprises. Now, you might be asking, hang on, so which Hunter Biden investigation is that? Well, just wait 10 minutes.
Make America great again.
The appointment of a special counsel came just 3 days after former President Trump defied his closest advisers and Republican Party leadership and announced his campaign for the presidency in 2024. In a subdued and sometimes rambling announcement speech last week, the former president framed his latest campaign around restoring the pre-pandemic prosperity that some Americans experienced.
It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use. 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words. American dream. That was not good what he did. There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
It was kind of weird. He trod on his big announcement line by riffing about Joe Biden's gaffes. And by the way, if you are wondering whether Joe Biden actually said that he was in Florida when he was in Idaho, no, he did not. Trump recently claimed as well that Biden was in Iowa, although he thought he was in Idaho. That is also false, according to PolitiFact. They gave it a pants-on-fire rating. Trump's announcement is good news for the fact-checking industry, if not for actual facts, one would say. Trump's announcement did get a pointedly cold shoulder from Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, the once loyal tabloid, reporting Florida man makes announcement, and relegated the news to page 26. That's got to hurt, as to the Conservative National Review. It was even more succinct with its headline, simply, no. And Republican Party megadonor Stephen Schwarzman, perhaps the unkindest cut of all, the CEO of the investment firm Blackstone, has dealt Trump a big blow, ruling out supporting him financially. Schwarzman saying in a statement, it is time for the Republican Party to turn to a new generation of leaders, and I intend to support one of them in the presidential primaries. At least 3 other major Trump donors from 2016 and 2020 have said they will be keeping their checkbooks closed to him this time as well. That potentially very good news for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is emerging already as Trump's potentially toughest competition for the Republican nomination in 24. He had this bit of advice following Trump's campaign announcement.
People just need to chill out a little bit on some of this stuff. I mean, seriously.
DeSantis has yet to declare whether he will also be running for president, but a new political action committee called Ron to the Rescue isn't waiting.
Florida was a refuge of sanity when the world went mad. We stood as a citadel of freedom for people across this country and indeed across the world.
While our nation struggled, Florida thrived. To defeat Biden and restore our country, America needs leadership. We need Ron DeSantis.
Longtime allies of Trump, like former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who is himself eyeing a second presidential campaign in 2024, have publicly broken ranks with him this week.
The reason we're losing is because Donald Trump has put himself before everybody else.
Sort of hesitant smattering of applause there. Meanwhile, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has been sending thinly veiled tweets paraphrasing Trump without actually naming him, like, we were told we'd get tired of winning, but I'm tired of losing. And Trump's former VP, Mike Pence, is doing the media rounds this week, trying to sell a new book and himself as a potential presidential candidate. He's started distancing himself from his old boss too.
I honestly believe that we'll have better choices come 2024. You know, I don't think anybody could have...
Better choices than Donald Trump?
I do.
Is he that choice? Well, Pence says that he and his family are giving prayerful consideration about whether to run. The first poll, though, Chaz, released after Trump's announcement suggests that Pence might need some divine intervention. Trump leads DeSantis by 18 points, according to this Harvard-Harris poll, with Mike Pence a very distant third on just 7%, followed by Ted Cruz, Nikki Haley and the rest. The same poll taken without Trump, though, shows how strong DeSantis is becoming as an alternative. Pence also picks up a bit, but is more than 30 points behind.
Yeah, and there's some other polls as well where DeSantis is ahead. Either way, DeSantis and Trump are definitely the two way out the front of Pence. Yeah. The issue for Trump, though, isn't just potential opponents. We're continuing to see former allies and supporters of Trump taking real pot shots at him, like Mo Brooks, for instance, last seen here embarrassing himself at the Trump rally on January 6.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
So keen was Mo Brooks to associate with Trump back in March when he was running in the Alabama primary, he dubbed himself MAGA Mo, even after Trump endorsed the other candidate. But now MAGA Mo is saying it would be a mistake for the Republicans to have Donald Trump as their nominee because he's proven himself to be dishonest, disloyal, incompetent and crude. Oh, and also, we will have candidates who are vastly superior than the loser Donald Trump has proven himself to be. So yes, it seems like someone is nursing a grudge. But even Trump's current friends are a bit shaky at the moment. Early on election night, Matt Gaetz tweeted out, "Trump should announce tonight his candidates won the primaries and we're going to win bigly. Trump deserves all the credit for this wave election." But now, a week later, Gaetz is saying he couldn't go to Trump's launch because the weather wasn't looking good for his flight down. But he'd be there in spirit. Spoiler, the weather was fine. Even worse, even Trump's daughter is bailing on him, saying, "I love my father very much. This time around, I'm choosing to prioritise my young children. I do not plan to be involved in politics." So she didn't even show up to the announcement. Now, look, that's fair enough, but Ivanka released that statement on the night of the announcement, stepping all over it a bit. So, not sure Trump would have loved that timing. Meanwhile, the election post-mortems just keep on coming and they are not flattering for Trump. The New York Times found that Trump's preferred candidates underperformed the other Republican candidates by 5 points. The biggest conservative news site on the internet, the Daily Wire, published a columnist writing, "Nearly every election-denying candidate Trump endorsed lost. His hand-picked candidates like Dr. Oz went down in a blaze of shame." Election deniers? Blaze of shame? This is not MSNBC. This is Trump's base talking. And this is all while Republicans were praising DeSantis for strong-arming the Florida Republican Party into approving his super gerrymandered Florida congressional maps, which netted Florida Republicans an extra 4 seats and, quote, helped the GOP win the tiny House majority. "Republicans in Congress owe a big thank you to Ron DeSantis," said the guy who might be the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. Firstly, how gerrymandered must those Florida seats be if they're too gerrymandered for Florida Republicans? And secondly, this was not a great start for Trump's campaign. Not at all.
Not at all. But if Trump's announcement triggered a wave of indifference and a special counsel, it also saw the new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, conduct a poll on whether to reinstate Trump's account, the one suspended after January 6th last year. The unscientific poll narrowly said yes, so did Elon, tweeting, "The people have spoken." So the account is back online. But Trump still seems to be sticking with his knockoff Truth Social.
Truth Social has been very, very powerful, very, very strong, and I'll be staying there. But I hear we're getting a big vote to also go back on Twitter. I don't see it because I don't see any reason for it.
One reason might be that Twitter has around 100 times the number of users as Truth Social. But I guess the question is, for how long? Despite their underwhelming midterm election showing where they failed to retake the Senate, the Republican Party was celebrating this week when they finally clinched a narrow majority in the United States House of Representatives. Needing 218 seats to claim the Speaker's gavel, Republicans now have at least 219, including a narrow win for controversial Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, she who falsely claimed the 2020 election was stolen from Trump and has also promoted QAnon conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced she is stepping down from leadership once the majority passes to Republicans formally in January. The 82-year-old, whose husband Paul was attacked in their San Francisco home last month, says she will be staying in Congress, for now at least.
For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
Also making way for others to shoulder the responsibility, 83-year-old Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. It's expected that Congressman Hakeem Jeffries will become the Democrats' House Minority Leader in the next Congress, putting him in line to become the Speaker the next time there is a Democratic Party majority. The Republicans, though, are already gearing up for their takeover of key House committees, which have sweeping investigative powers, and it seems their big target may well be the son of the president. Last week, FBI Director Chris Wray was asked about the agency's 2020 investigation into Hunter Biden's laptop by Republican Senator Ron Johnson.
Have you looked into those charges that there was a scheme hatched in August 2020 to downplay the derogatory information on Hunter Biden? Have you looked into that personally?
We have, as we speak, a number of personnel matters that are underway, and as reasons I'm sure you can appreciate, we can't discuss.
I know that's always your excuse.
Matters.
No, I got it. I understand how you remain above the law by using that excuse repeatedly.
That's a taste of the next 2 years right there.
Oh, help us all.
But look, that's just the beginning. On Thursday, House Republicans held a big press conference where they outlined a broad range of investigative targets focused on President Biden and his family's business dealings. We are talking 2 committees going at once. It's going to be Hunter Biden everywhere. The House is going to be a Hunter zone. Although the head of the Oversight Committee, Jim Comer, would dispute that categorization.
This committee will evaluate the status of Joe Biden's relationship with his family's foreign partners and whether he is a president who is compromised or swayed by foreign dollars and influence. I want to be clear. This is an investigation of Joe Biden, and that's where the committee will focus in this next Congress.
Okay, and what in particular are they focusing on?
Committee Republicans have uncovered evidence of federal crimes committed by and to the benefit of members of the president's family. These include conspiracy or defrauding the United States, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, violations of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, tax evasion, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit money laundering.
Oh, haven't the Bidens been busy? But notice at the beginning he said the Biden family, not Joe himself. This happens continuously throughout press conferences like these. They start off talking about Joe, but all of a sudden they're discussing hunters, prostitutes, etc., etc. Look, but there is one thing that is definitely all about actually Joe Biden, and that is his denials.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
House Republicans claim that not only did Biden know about Hunter's alleged dealings, but he was actively involved in them and he profited from them. And their evidence? Well, White House visitor logs indicate that Hunter's closest business partner made at least 19 visits to the White House and other official locations between 2009 and 2015, including a sit-down with then VP Biden in the West Wing. There are reportedly records of Joe meeting at least 14 of Hunter's business associates while he was vice president. There are also photos of Joe meeting a bunch of Hunter's business associates. And there is one associate who says he's very keen to testify that he dealt directly with the Biden family, including Joe Biden himself. And there are plenty of emails and texts going around that people are going to interpret in a way that's most convenient to them. But sometimes the dates of these alleged dealings are murky, and so is a proof that Joe actually got paid off. Maybe Joe did lie to the media, but is he corrupt? That's why the House Republicans are keen to get their hands on some rather special bank records.
A suspicious activity report, or SAR, is a document a bank must file with the Treasury Department when a transaction is suspected to be related to money laundering or fraud or other types of criminal activity. According to media reports, the Biden family accumulated over 150 SARs. Under President Bush, under President Obama, and under President Trump, any committee in Congress could have access to those suspicious activity reports. But when Joe Biden became president, he changed the rules. Now, does anyone here doubt my suspicion that he changed the rules because his son and possibly himself had 150 suspicious activity reports? Are we the only ones that find that odd?
No, you're not the only one that finds that odd. That is a good question. But I've got another good question. If this is really all about Joe Biden and not just bashing up on a man battling drug addiction, why aren't they planning to subpoena Joe Biden, but they are planning to subpoena Hunter Biden? I suspect we're going to have many months to get to the bottom of all these questions, John.
About 24 of them by my count, Chaz. So look, there is a lot going on this week. Joining us to talk about all that is former New York Democratic Congressman Steve Israel, who's a past chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and a close ally of outgoing Democratic Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Steve Israel, welcome to Planet America.
It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Appointing a special counsel, Steve, to investigate a former president who's running to be president again, possibly considering laying criminal charges against Trump or others. That's a potential recipe for chaos, isn't it?
Well, you know, that's the thing with Donald Trump. This is somebody who has been walking under a legal cloud, a political cloud for most of his career. And yet, it never seems to erupt on him. This is somebody who escapes all sorts of legal problems. Question is now, how does this affect his presidential campaign? Now, there's quite a bit of speculation in the states that one of the reasons that Donald Trump announced that he's running for president in 2024 is because he didn't believe that the Department of Justice had the nerve to continue to prosecute him as a candidate. And so he will manipulate that. He will say that he is being persecuted unfairly, that this special counsel is political, and a vast part of the population of the American electorate will agree with him.
The special counsel is meant to be independent, but can you really ever take the politics out of this? You know what the story is going to be. Merrick Garland appoints special counsel as payback for being denied a Supreme Court seat.
Well, that's the story that Donald Trump will write. But I must say that the Department of Justice is composed of professionals. These are people who've dedicated their lives to the rule of law and democratic norms. And Donald Trump is clearly going to suggest that this is a partisan witch hunt. This is the line that he uses consistently. I don't think that's fair. I think that this Justice Department would have reached the same conclusions no matter who committed these alleged crimes.
Steve, your old friend and ally Nancy Pelosi announced this week she's stepping down as Speaker and from any leadership role in the party. In your estimation, how consequential a Speaker was she?
Well, John, I was her chief political lieutenant as a member of the House of Representatives. I chaired the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I must say I probably spent more time with her during the course of the day than any other member of Congress, talking about campaign strategies and political strategies. And I can tell you, people say that she was the most consequential woman in American politics in recent history. That's wrong. She was the most consequential human being in American politics in recent history. Were it not for her, America would not have passed the Affordable Care Act. Were it not for her, we wouldn't have made the investments that we are making in climate change and clean technologies. This is a political figure who refused to take no for an answer and shaped modern American politics.
So are you saying that Obamacare should rightly be known as Pelosi Care?
There were times when the folks in the White House themselves figured, we've lost this battle. We don't know if we can get the votes. When we started on the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, there was no path to getting the 218 votes in the House that were necessary. And it was Nancy Pelosi who famously said in the White House, You know, if we have to knock on the door to get it passed, we will. If we have to kick in the door, we will. If we have to pole vault over the fence, we will. If we have to parachute through the roof, we will. But we will get it done, and we did.
What was her secret? How did she do it?
Yeah, so she had an absolute command of her caucus. The Democratic caucus in the House of Representatives is very diverse, quite disparate. You have conservative, so-called blue dog Democrats. You have the progressive caucus. You have the high-tech new Democrats. It's a very diverse and disparate caucus. And she found a way to unite all of those factions in a working coalition that would deliver the votes necessary to pass consequential legislation.
Finally, Steve Israel, just 2 weeks ago on this program, your former colleague, Senator Heidi Heitkamp, told us that she thinks that maybe if the Republicans in the House go after Hunter Biden, Joe Biden may have second thoughts and decide not to run again. It's just not worth it if they're going after his family. What do you think on that?
Well, I love Heidi Heitkamp. She's a wonderful friend. I will say, however, the only person who has insight into President Biden's thinking about 2024 is President Biden and the First Lady. There's so much speculation and people are trying to read his mind and the First Lady's mind. He's going to make his own calculation. Now, I will tell you that his family is very important to him, and they have suffered tremendously. But he also believes, if he believes that he is the only one who can defeat Donald Trump, I would suspect that he will run for re-election if that is his calculation. If he believes if Trump ends up being blasted out of the Republican primary, and Trump has his own political problems right now within his own party, if there's another Republican who rises to the top and President Biden believes that there may be others who can defeat that Republican, maybe he changes his calculation. But I would caution people from speculating too much into what President Biden thinks or what decision he's going to make. He needs the time and space to make that decision on his own.
Steve Israel, thank you for being with us on Planet America.
My pleasure.
Well, such is the nature of American politics. No sooner is one election over than a new one is getting underway. It is now just under 2 years until the next presidential election. And while there's a lot we don't know, history can teach us a lot about who might or might not win.
Will you shut up, man? Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Looking ahead to 2024, what are the lessons from history for both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in particular? Joe Biden campaigned for president unsuccessfully in 1988 and again in 2008 before finally winning the White House in 2020, becoming the oldest person ever to hold the office at the age of 78. That immediately raised questions about whether he would seek a second term after 4 years.
I'm a great respecter of fate. I've never been able to plan 3.5 years ahead for certain.
We'll soon see what the future holds for Joe Biden. America's first president, George Washington, left office after 2 4-year terms in 1797, and most presidents accepted that precedent for the next century and a half.
3 times, by the will of the people, he renewed his oath as president.
Only Franklin Roosevelt served a full 3rd term and was elected to a 4th before dying in office in 1945.
And now, in his cottage at Warm Springs, FDR has passed away.
In part, in reaction to FDR's death in wartime, the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1951, stipulating someone can be elected president only twice, as long as they haven't already served more than 2 years of a predecessor's term if they died or resigned.
And so, goodbye, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Historically, most presidents have run again if they could.
And we will win our 2nd term in November.
But there have been a few exceptions. Back in 1844, President John Tyler dropped out of the race when he couldn't secure a major party's nomination. In 1848, Democrat James Polk chose not to seek a 2nd term, which is probably just as well. He died the following year. Rutherford Hayes didn't run again in 1880, having made a single-term pledge after winning a bitterly contested election 4 years earlier. And another 4 presidents who came to office after the death of their predecessor declined to stand in a 2nd election, even when they could. Theodore Roosevelt in 1908, Calvin Coolidge in 1928, Harry Truman in 1952 and Lyndon Johnson in 1968.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
Here's something for Joe Biden to ponder, though. While 17 presidents managed to win more than one election, in total, 11 presidents who've run for a second term have been defeated. President John Adams lost to Thomas Jefferson in 1800. Like father, like son, President John Quincy Adams failed to win re-election against Andrew Jackson in 1828. Martin Van Buren was denied a second term by William Henry Harrison in 1840, although Harrison died after just 31 days in office. In 1888, President Grover Cleveland lost his re-election bid to Benjamin Harrison, old William Henry's grandson. But Cleveland got his revenge 4 years later when he defeated Benjamin Harrison. Other one-term losers: William Howard Taft in 1912, Herbert Hoover in 1932. In 1976, President Gerald Ford got the boot 2 years after taking over when Nixon quit.
By our projection, James Earl Carter, the next president of the United States.
But Jimmy Carter failed to win a second term against Ronald Reagan in 1980. President George Bush was also denied a second term by Bill Clinton in 1992.
So we will get behind this new president and wish him well.
Although Donald Trump took a more novel approach when he lost to Joe Biden in 2020.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
But here's something for Trump to ponder. Grover Cleveland is the only president to suffer a defeat, stage a comeback and serve a second non-consecutive term. He's also the only one to seriously try. But Cleveland wasn't impeached twice, falsely claimed the vote was rigged, incite a riot to overturn an election, steal secret documents and face possible criminal indictment. So there's that. And that is all for our final trip to Planet America for this year. We will be back in the middle of 2023.
And you can see our final Off the Planet Extra on ABC, iView, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget our final pet podcast.
Chaz, look out the window. Look out, it's snowing.
Oh my God!
It's snowing.
What a digital miracle.
It's a month before Christmas miracle. We'll see you again next year. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.